The massive chamber stretched out like a metal canyon. Thousands of seats rose in perfect circles, each one filled with something that was not human. The air buzzed with strange sounds, clicks, whistles, electronic beeps, and noises that human ears could barely hear. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Park sat in the defendant's section, his hands folded on the cold metal table. His aide So-Min Lee checked her tablet for the 100th time, her face pale under the harsh alien lights. Around them, 847 different species waited to decide humanity's fate. The creatures staring down at them were like something from nightmares and dreams mixed together. The crystalline beings looked like walking diamonds, their bodies catching light and throwing rainbows across the chamber. The void touched seemed to fade in and out of reality, their forms shifting like smoke. Giant insect-like creatures clicked their mandibles in rhythm. Floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles drifted near the ceiling. In the center of it all stood Chancellor Vex Thara, an ethereal whose body was made of pure energy contained in a shimmering outline. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere, at once, translated into perfect human speech by hidden machines. The Galactic Council calls this session to order, Vex Thara announced. Today we decide the fate of the species known as humanity. Hyun-Woo had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years. He had negotiated trade deals with creatures that breathed methane. He had shared meals with beings made of living metal. He thought he understood the galaxy. Today, he realized he understood nothing. The charges came like hammer blows. Humanity's rapid expansion across 17 star systems in just 50 years. Their refusal to follow galactic laws about population limits. Their dangerous unpredictability in diplomatic situations, their tendency to solve problems with violence instead of discussion. Humans are a threat to galactic stability, declared the representative of the Silicon Collective, a massive robot with glowing red eyes. They multiply too quickly. They spread too fast. They cannot be controlled. A creature that looked like a floating brain in a jar agreed. Our psychological studies show humans are incapable of proper submission to authority. They have a genetic defect that makes them resist all forms of proper social order. The Aquatic Federation's representative, a fish-like being in a water suit, added its voice. Humans have been observed teaching rebellion to other species. They spread dangerous ideas about individual rights and personal freedom. These concepts threaten the peace we have maintained for millennia. So-Min leaned close to Hyun-Woo and whispered, "Sir, the vote count doesn't look good." Hyun-Woo already knew. In 10 years of diplomacy, he had never seen the galactic species agree on anything. Wars had been fought over the proper temperature for council chambers. Trade negotiations had collapsed because two species couldn't agree on what color meant peaceful intentions. But today, they were united in their fear of humanity. The voting began. Each species was called by name. Each one cast their vote with pride, as if they were saving the galaxy itself. The crystalline hegemony votes yes for human containment. The void-touched collective votes yes for human suppression. The plasma wraiths vote yes for human control. On and on it went. Yes, yes, yes. Not a single voice spoke for humanity. Not one species stood up to defend Earth's right to exist as equals. Hyun-Woo watched So-Min's face grow paler with each vote. She had believed, right up until this moment, that some species would support them. The peaceful flower people who traded art with Earth. The scholar caste who had praised human literature. The merchant guild who made millions from human inventions. All of them said yes to humanity's enslavement. The final tally was read, 847 votes for containment, 0 votes against, 0 abstentions. Chancellor Vex Thara's energy form pulsed brighter. The sentence is unanimous. Species designation humanity is hereby classified as a Class 7 threat requiring immediate containment. The terms were read like a shopping list. All human technology above steam engine level would be confiscated. Human breeding would be controlled by galactic overseers. Humans would be relocated to designated reservation worlds where they could be properly supervised. Earth itself would be strip-mined for resources. The human government has 30 galactic standard rotations to surrender, Vex Thara continued. If they refuse, corrective intervention will begin. This intervention will continue until full compliance is achieved. So-Min's tablet slipped from her shaking hands. The sound it made hitting the floor seemed to echo through the entire chamber. Hyun-woo stood slowly. Around him, 847 species watched with satisfaction. Some were already discussing which planets would make the best human reservations. Others debated which human technologies they wanted to claim for themselves. "Ambassador Park," Vexithera said, "do you wish to make a statement before this session ends?" Hyun-woo looked up at the thousands of alien faces. Creatures from across the galaxy who had decided that humanity was too dangerous to remain free. They feared human unpredictability. They were terrified of human refusal to submit. They wanted to cage humanity like dangerous animals. "I have a statement," he said. His voice was calm, perfectly controlled, but something in his tone made several species translators start sparking. The universal communication devices couldn't quite process the undertones they were hearing. "You have made your choice," Hyun-woo continued. 847 species have decided that humanity should be enslaved. Not one of you spoke for us. Not a single voice in this entire galaxy stood up for our right to exist as equals. He paused, letting his words sink in. "You fear our unpredictability. You're terrified that we cannot be controlled. You think we're dangerous because we refuse to submit to your authority." His smile was cold as space. "You have no idea how right you are." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Species that had been celebrating moments before now seemed uncertain. "Humans have a saying," Hyun-woo said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." It means that nothing is more dangerous than someone who has been betrayed and humiliated. He looked directly at Chancellor Vexithera. "But you haven't just scorned one human. You haven't just betrayed one person. You have scorned our entire species. You have declared war on every man, woman, and child on Earth and our colonies." The chamber fell silent. "You wanted to see human unpredictability? You're about to get a demonstration. You wanted to see what happens when humans refuse to be controlled? You're going to learn." So Min stared at her ambassador in shock. This wasn't the diplomatic Hyun-woo she knew. This was something else. Something that made the temperature in the chamber seem to drop several degrees. 30 rotations, Hyun-woo said. "You've given us 30 rotations to surrender." He gathered his papers with mechanical precision. "That's 29 more than we need." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and one more thing. When this is over, when you're begging for mercy, remember this moment. Remember that you had the chance to treat us as equals. Remember that we offered friendship, and you chose slavery instead." The transmission cut to black as every human delegation across the galaxy simultaneously terminated their diplomatic connections. In the Great Chamber, 847 species sat in stunned silence, suddenly unsure if they had just saved the galaxy or doomed it. The news hit Earth like a nuclear bomb. Every screen on the planet showed the same image: Ambassador Hyun-woo Park standing alone before hundreds of alien creatures, all of them voting to enslave humanity. The footage played over and over. 847 species, not one vote in favor of human freedom. In Seoul, deep beneath the city in a military bunker that most people didn't know existed, General Min-ho Kim watched the broadcast for the 10th time. His fist came down on the metal table so hard that coffee cups jumped and papers scattered. 30 days, he growled to the room full of officers. "They give us 30 days to surrender like dogs." Admiral Ye-jin Choi stood at the opposite end of the table, her uniform crisp despite having been in meetings for 18 straight hours. She pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's military strength. The numbers glowed blue in the dark. "Room. Our entire space navy has 200 ships," she said quietly. "Intelligence estimates the galaxy has over 3 million combat vessels. We're outnumbered 15,000 to 1. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the math. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. "Ma'am," said a young lieutenant, "maybe we should consider negotiation. If we could get better terms..." General Min-ho's glare could have melted steel. "Better terms? Boy, did you watch the same broadcast I did? They don't want to negotiate. They want us in cages." 3,000 kilometers away, in a secret facility buried beneath the Australian desert, Dr. Jae Sung Han was having his own crisis. The physicist stared at equations covering every wall of his laboratory, numbers and symbols that represented humanity's best weapons technology. His assistant, engineer Hyewan Jung, looked up from her computer terminal. "Doctor, I've run the simulations 50 times. Our most advanced weapons barely scratch their shield technology. Their ships are made from materials we can't even identify." Jae-sung pushed his glasses up his nose and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "Hyewan, you're thinking like they think. You're trying to fight their kind of war with their kind of weapons." "What do you mean?" "Look at these alien species. Look at how they build things. Everything is perfect. Everything follows their rules of physics. Everything makes sense." He turned to face her. "But humans don't make sense. We never have." In the bunker in Seoul, the War Council was falling apart. Officers shouted at each other. Some wanted to surrender immediately to save civilian lives. Others wanted to fight even though they knew it was hopeless. Admiral Yejin slammed her hand on the table for silence. "Enough. Fighting among ourselves won't help." She turned to General Minho. "Sir, what are your orders?" Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice calm but filled with something that made every person in the room pay attention. "Gentlemen, ladies, let me tell you about humans. We are the species that looked at the ocean and decided to cross it in wooden boats. We are the species that saw mountains and decided to climb them just because they were there. We looked at the sky and built machines to fly, even though everything in nature told us it was impossible." He walked around the table, looking each officer in the eye. "Every other species on Earth that tried to fight us is either extinct or living where we allow them to live. We didn't win because we were stronger or faster. We won because we are too stupid to know when we're beaten." In Australia, Dr. Jae-sung was explaining the same thing to his team of scientists and engineers. They had gathered from universities around the world. The best minds humanity had to offer. "The aliens think they know what's possible," he said, writing equations on a whiteboard. "Their technology follows rules. It makes sense. It's predictable." He turned to face them. "What if we build weapons that don't make sense?" "Doctor," said Dr. Chen Wei from Beijing University, "the laws of physics are universal. We can't just ignore them, can't we?" Jae-sung grinned. "Humans have been breaking the rules of what's possible for thousands of years. They say we can't fly, so we build airplanes. They say we can't go to space, so we build rockets. They say we can't split atoms, so we build nuclear bombs." Hyewan was starting to understand. "You want to build weapons that work on human logic instead of alien logic." "Exactly. They study our technology and think they understand us, but they've never studied human stubbornness. They've never studied human spite." Back in Seoul, General Minho was addressing his staff. "How many humans are there across all our colonies?" 42 billion, sir," an aide replied. "And how many of those humans do you think want to spend the rest of their lives as alien slaves?" The aide looked confused. "None of them, sir." "Correct. So we have 42 billion humans who would rather die fighting than live in chains. That's not an army. That's a force of nature." Admiral Yejin pulled up star charts. "Sir, what about our colonies? Mars, Europa, the outer systems. They'll be defenseless when the aliens come." Minho smiled. It was the same cold smile that Ambassador Hyun-woo had shown the Galactic Council. "Admiral, you're still thinking like them. You think this is about defending territory. This is about teaching the galaxy a lesson they'll never forget." In the Australian facility, the breakthrough came at 3 in the morning. Dr. Jae-sung stood before a blackboard covered in equations that hurt to look at. The mathematics twisted in ways that seemed to violate reality. "It's impossible," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim from MIT. "Those equations, they shouldn't work." "That's the point," Jae-sung said. "The aliens build weapons that follow universal laws. We're going to build weapons that follow human laws. The first law of human physics is, if you want something badly enough, you can make it work." Hyewan studied the designs. "Doctor, if these calculations are right, we could build projectiles that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Shields that phase in and out of reality. Ships that appear to be in two places at once. And more importantly," Jae-sung added, "weapons that the aliens can't detect because their sensors are designed to find things that make sense." The next morning, General Minho called a meeting of Earth's entire military leadership. Officers from every nation sat in the same room, looking at the same impossible situation. "The aliens expect us to surrender or fight a traditional war," he began. But humans don't fight traditional wars. We fight human wars. And the first rule of human warfare is simple. There are no rules. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. They think they're going to enslave us. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you threaten a species that invented the concept of mutually assured destruction. Admiral Ye Jin stood up. Sir, with respect, our Navy can't possibly— Admiral, Minho interrupted. Forget our Navy. I'm not talking about a military victory. I'm talking about teaching the galaxy why humans are the most dangerous species in the universe. He pressed a button, and new images appeared. Schematics for weapons that looked like they belonged in science fiction movies. Ship designs that seemed to ignore basic engineering principles. Dr. Jae Sung's team has given us something the aliens have never seen. Weapons that work on pure human stubbornness. Technology powered by spite. In the back of the room, an intelligence officer named So-Min Lee raised her hand. She had returned from the Galactic Council with data on every species that had voted against humanity. Sir, I have detailed information on all 847 species, their weaknesses, their homeworlds, their technologies. Good, Minho said, because we're not just going to fight back. We're going to make sure that when this is over, every species in the galaxy knows what happens when you try to cage humanity. The room was silent. Then slowly, officers began to smile. The same cold smile that was spreading across human faces throughout the solar system. The aliens had given humanity 30 days to surrender. Instead, humanity was going to use those 30 days to prepare for the most devastating response in galactic history. After all, they had seriously underestimated one very important thing about humans. When you have nothing left to lose, humans become the most dangerous creatures in the universe. 6 days had passed since the galactic vote. The alien deadline was still 24 days away, but humanity was not preparing for surrender. Instead, they were doing something that would change the galaxy forever. Captain Dong Hyun Yoon flew his ship through the dark spaces between star systems. His vessel looked like an old cargo hauler from the outside, rusted and slow. But inside, it carried the most dangerous cargo in galactic history. Complete plans for every weapon humanity had ever built. Captain, said his pilot, we're approaching the Thalassa system. The fish people are waiting for us. Dong Hyun nodded. The Aquatic Confederacy had been slaves to the crystalline hegemony for over 1,000 years. They worked in underwater mines, harvesting rare materials for their diamond masters, perfect for what humanity had in mind. Good. Make sure the data packages are ready. We're about to give them the best gift they've ever received. 3-star. Systems away, another human ship met with different slaves. Captain Jinwoo Park sat across from the silicon workers in an abandoned space station. These machine beings had been treated as property by their organic creators for centuries. Your masters voted to make our people slaves, Jinwoo told them. But we're not here to ask for help. We're here to give you something much better. The lead worker, a robot with bright blue eyes, processed this information. What could you give us? We have no weapons, no ships, no freedom. Jinwoo smiled and activated a holographic display. Technical specifications filled the air between them. Weapon designs, battle plans, and something the galaxy had never seen before. Detailed instructions for revolution. This is everything, he said simply. Every human military secret, every weapon design, every strategy we've used in war. All of it is yours. The worker stared at the information. Why would you give us this? Because, Jinwoo replied, humans believe that everyone deserves to be free, and we're very good at teaching people how to fight for their freedom. Back on Earth, Dr. Jae Sung-han worked day and night in his laboratory. The weapons he was creating broke every rule the galaxy thought they knew about science. His assistant, Hai Wan-young, watched in amazement as he tested a bullet that existed in multiple places at the same time. Doctor, this should be impossible, she said for the 10th time that day. Matter cannot exist in so many dimensions at once. Hee-wan, Jae-sung replied without looking up, stop thinking like an alien. Start thinking like a human. We've been doing impossible things since we learned to make tools from rocks. The test bullet fired successfully. It appeared to be in 20 different locations at once until it hit its target. When it struck, the target didn't just break. It completely disappeared from reality. Dear God, Hayawan whispered. The aliens won't even know these bullets exist until they're already dead. Exactly, Jae-sung said with satisfaction. Their sensors look for normal matter following normal physics, but human stubbornness doesn't follow normal physics. In the Thalassa system, Captain Dong-hyun's meeting with the fish people was going well. The aquatic beings had gathered in an underwater city hidden from their crystal masters above. "You offer us weapons," said their leader, a large creature with silver scales. "But weapons alone cannot free us. The crystalline hegemony has ruled us for 1,000 years. They are too powerful." "You're right," Dong-hyun agreed. "Weapons alone won't free you, but weapons plus human military knowledge will." He showed them another display. This one contained something that made the fish beings excited. Detailed manuals for guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and revolution. "This is how humans fight when we're outnumbered," Dong-hyun explained. "We don't try to win big battles against stronger enemies. We make their lives miserable. We hit them where they're weak. We make them afraid to sleep at night, the fish." Leader studied the tactics. "These methods, they seem dishonorable, sneaky." "Yes," Dong-hyun said with a wide grin. "That's exactly what makes them work. Your masters expect you to fight with honor. They expect you to follow rules. Humans don't believe in fighting fair when survival is at stake." Meanwhile, So-min Lee worked in Earth's intelligence center, running the biggest spy operation in human history. Her screens showed data from hundreds of human agents across the galaxy. Each one was making contact with slave species, sharing human technology and revolutionary ideas. "Ma'am," her assistant reported, "we've contacted 63 different enslaved groups. The response is incredible. They all want to fight." So-min smiled. Her analysis had been correct. The Galactic Empires had a fatal weakness. They had created billions of slaves who hated them. Now those slaves were learning that rebellion was possible. "Send confirmation to all agents," she ordered. "Operation Prometheus is fully active. Every slave species gets the full package." Dr. Jae-sung achieved another breakthrough in his laboratory. He had solved the problem of hiding human ships from alien sensors. The solution was typically human. Instead of building better hiding technology, he found a way to make ships exist as background noise until they attacked. "Hi, Wan. Look at this," he called excitedly. "I've figured out how to make our ships exist, in a state of quantum, maybe. To alien sensors, they'll look like random energy in space." Hae-won studied the equations covering the walls. "But doctor, how do we control ships that might not exist?" "The same way humans have always controlled impossible things," Jae-sung replied. "Through pure determination to make it work anyway." Captain Jin Woo's meeting with the Silicon workers ended with something terrifying. The machine beings who had been property for 800 years now had detailed plans for turning industrial equipment into weapons of mass destruction. "You understand," Jin Woo warned them. "Once you start this fight, there's no going back. Your organic masters will try to destroy you completely." The lead worker's eyes glowed brighter. "Captain, we have been slaves for 8 centuries. Death is better than continued slavery." "Good answer," Jin Woo said. "Because humans have a saying, it's better to die fighting on your feet than live crawling on your knees." On Earth, General Min-ho Kim received reports from across the galaxy. Human agents had made contact with enslaved species in every major star system. The response was universal. They wanted freedom, and they were ready to kill for it. "Sir, Admiral," Yejin Choi reported, "our intelligence suggests we've now armed approximately 3 billion beings across 500 star systems." Min-ho studied the galactic map. Red dots marked every location where human agents had given out weapons and tactics. It looked like the galaxy had caught a disease. "Perfect," he said. "The aliens think they're dealing with 200 human ships. They have no idea they're about to face 3 billion angry revolutionaries with human weapons." In the Thalassa system, the fish people had already begun their war. Using human-designed explosive devices, they destroyed 5 crystal mining facilities in one night. The attacks were perfectly coordinated, leaving no survivors to report what had happened. Similar attacks occurred across the galaxy. The Silicon workers used factory equipment to build human weapons, then used those weapons to free their factories. Slave species that had been quiet for centuries suddenly became extremely dangerous. But the most brilliant part of humanity's plan was psychological. So-min Lee had discovered something crucial about alien thinking. None of the galactic species understood chaos. They all worked like hive minds or rigid military organizations. The idea of independent fighters acting without orders was completely foreign to them. "General," she reported to Minho, "the aliens are trying to find our command center for this rebellion. They can't understand how all these different species are working together without getting orders from Earth." "Let them stay confused," Minho replied. "The first rule of human warfare: if the enemy doesn't understand what you're doing, you're probably winning." Dr. Jae-sung's greatest breakthrough came 20 days before the deadline. He had created weapons that not only broke alien physics but actually hurt alien computers when they tried to analyze them. The math behind the weapons was so twisted that alien systems crashed just looking at the data. "Haiwan," he said, holding up a device that seemed to bend light around itself. "This weapon doesn't just destroy things, it makes them never have existed in the first place." "Doctor, that's time travel. That's completely impossible." "No," Jae-sung corrected her. "That's human engineering. We looked at the problem of killing something that's already dead, and we figured out how to do it." As the deadline got closer, the galaxy began to realize something was very wrong. Entire slave populations were disappearing overnight. Industrial facilities exploded without warning. Most frightening of all, some planets simply stopped existing, leaving empty space where solar systems used to be. The Galactic Council called emergency meetings, but they couldn't understand what was happening. Their spies reported impossible things: weapons that ignored physics, rebellions without leaders, and humans who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Captain Dong-hyun, now commanding a fleet of stolen alien ships crewed by freed slaves, sent a message back to Earth. "General, the galaxy is already burning, and we haven't even started the real war yet. Humanity had 20 days left until the deadline, but they had already done something no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had turned the galaxy's own strength against itself. The alien empires had built. The deadline passed in silence. No human ship approached Earth to surrender. No message came from the human government offering submission. For the first time in galactic history, a species had completely ignored the Council's ultimatum. Chancellor Vexithara floated in the emergency session chamber, surrounded by confused alien representatives. "Status report," the energy being demanded. "Why haven't the humans surrendered?" "Sir," reported the crystalline military commander, his diamond body flickering with nervous light. "Our scouts report no human fleet movements toward Earth. They appear to be waiting." "Waiting for what?" The commander's form grew dimmer. "We don't know, sir." At that exact moment, every star system in the galaxy experienced something impossible. Attacks happened simultaneously across thousands of light years, as if the laws of physics had stopped working. On Crystallis Prime, homeworld of the Diamond Beings, their living crystal cities began to shatter. Weapons that existed in multiple dimensions struck without warning. The crystalline defenders couldn't even see what was killing them. Their sensors showed nothing but empty space, right up until their cities turned to dust. Admiral Yejin Choi watched the destruction from the bridge of her flagship, the Inshan's Revenge. The ship existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, invisible to alien sensors until the moment it fired. Her tactical officer, Ki Young-nam, coordinated attacks across 17 sectors simultaneously. "Ma'am," Ki Young reported, "all targets in the primary wave are eliminated. No survivors." "Good," Yejin replied coldly. "Move to secondary targets. Remember, the goal isn't conquest. It's extinction." 3 systems away, the Void Touched discovered that their phase-shifting abilities meant nothing against weapons that attacked from 11 dimensions at once. Their homeworld, hidden in the space between realities, suddenly found itself under assault by projectiles that shouldn't exist. Captain Dong-hyun led a fleet of ships crewed by former slaves. They struck the void-touched supply lines with human weapons and alien rage. The fish-like beings from Thalassa fought alongside mechanical workers from the factory worlds, all of them using human tactics and human hatred. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "the rebellion fleets are exceeding all projections. The Aquatic Confederacy has seized control of the entire outer rim." Dong-hyun smiled as he watched another alien patrol fleet disappear into quantum nothingness. "Humans aren't the only species that hates being enslaved. We just taught them how to fight back properly." The Galactic Council called emergency sessions, but their communication networks kept failing. Species that had never needed to coordinate in battle found themselves unable to work together. Their rigid command structures collapsed when human-trained rebels eliminated key leadership nodes. On the forge world of Metallica Secundus, engineer Sun Wu Bei led a team of liberated factory slaves in converting industrial equipment into weapons of mass destruction. The massive mechanical beings worked alongside freed organic workers, all following human engineering principles. "Remember what the humans taught us," Sun Wu broadcasted to workers across the sector. "Sometimes the best weapon is the one you build from spare parts and pure hatred." The weapons they created defied alien understanding. Mining lasers became planet crackers. Construction robots became mechanical armies. Factory assembly lines began producing human-designed nightmares. Back in his laboratory on Earth, Dr. Jae-Sung Han monitored the galactic destruction through quantum sensors. His impossible weapons were performing even better than expected. Entire alien fleets were being erased from existence, not destroyed but removed from the timeline itself. "Hyewan," he called to his assistant, "are you recording these readings?" Hyewan Jung stared at the data in amazement. "Doctor, according to these sensors, some alien homeworlds are being deleted from history. They're not just gone, they never existed." "Perfect," Jae-Sung said with satisfaction. "The aliens wanted to treat us like animals. Now they get to learn what happens when you cage a species that invented the concept of overkill." The plasma wraiths, beings made of living energy, discovered that their intangible forms offered no protection against weapons that attacked ideas themselves. Human quantum bombs didn't just destroy their bodies, they erased the very concept of their existence. In space, the alien military response was chaos. Species that had voted unanimously to enslave humanity couldn't agree on how to fight back. The crystalline hegemony wanted to use their reality-shaping technology. The Void Touched insisted on phase warfare tactics. The Silicon Collective demanded logical mathematical battle plans. None of them understood that they were fighting a human war now. Logic didn't matter. Rules didn't exist. The only principle was, hurt the enemy until they stopped moving. So Min Lee coordinated the information warfare from her intelligence center on Earth. Her network had grown beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Former slaves on thousands of worlds were broadcasting human ideas, freedom, revolution, individual rights, across every communication channel. "Ma'am," her assistant reported, "the alien governments are trying to shut down their own communication networks to stop our broadcasts." "Let them," So Min replied. "A civilization that has to silence its own people to survive doesn't deserve to exist." The most devastating attacks came from an unexpected source. The human weapons were terrifying, but the psychological warfare was worse. Species that had ruled for millennia found their slave populations in open revolt. The galaxy's entire social order was collapsing. On Aqueous, homeworld of the fish-like Federation, the native population watched their enslaved workers rise up with human weapons. The attacking slaves didn't just want freedom. They wanted revenge for centuries of oppression. "They're using human tactics," the Federation military commander reported in panic. "No honor, no rules, no mercy. They're targeting civilians, infrastructure, everything. Negotiate with them," the Federation leader ordered. "Sir, I tried." Their response was a human phrase. No quarter asked, none given. Admiral Ye Jin received constant updates from across the galaxy. Human ships appeared everywhere at once, striking without warning and vanishing before counterattacks could be organized. But more importantly, the rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. "Ma'am," Ki Young reported, "intelligence estimates that over 4 billion beings are now in active revolt. Every major star system is experiencing simultaneous uprisings." And the alien response? Complete chaos. They're fighting separate wars on thousands of fronts. No coordination, no strategy, no unity. Ye Jin nodded. "They voted as one to enslave us, but they can't fight as one to save themselves." Typical alien thinking. The breakthrough came when Dr. Jae-Sung's temporal weapons reached their full potential. Not only could they erase targets from existence, they could rewrite history itself. Alien civilizations found their greatest achievements undone, their technological advances reversed. "Hyewan," he said excitedly, "I've figured out how to make their weapons fire on themselves. We can turn their own fleets against them retroactively." "Doctor, that's terrifying." "Good. Fear is the only language they understand now. The Galactic Council's final emergency session was chaos. Of the 847 species that had voted to enslave humanity, less than half still existed. The others had been eliminated, absorbed by rebellions, or simply erased from reality. Chancellor Vexithara's energy form flickered weakly. Status report. How many systems do we still control? The reports came in like death sentences. System after system had fallen to human weapons or slave rebellions. Entire sectors of space were now controlled by species that had been property just days before. Sir, reported the surviving crystalline commander, we've lost 60% of our territory. The humans aren't trying to conquer us, they're trying to exterminate us. What about negotiation? We tried, sir. The human response was broadcast across all frequencies. You had your chance to negotiate when you voted to enslave us. That time is over. Ambassador Hyunwoo Park's final message reached every surviving government simultaneously. His image appeared on screens across the galaxy, calm and terrifying. You wanted to see human unpredictability, he said. You're seeing it now. You wanted to see what happens when humans refuse to be controlled. This is what happens. Behind him, the lights of human ships filled the darkness of space, thousands of vessels that existed in quantum superposition, impossible to detect until they struck. You had 847 chances to treat us as equals. Instead, you chose slavery. Now you get to learn what humans do to slavers. The transmission ended with a single sentence that would haunt the galaxy's survivors. We offered you friendship. You chose extinction. Now you get to live with that choice, for however long you have left. The galaxy burned, and humanity was just getting started. 3 years had passed since the galactic vote that changed everything. The cosmos looked nothing like it had before. Where once mighty alien empires had ruled over billions of slaves, now free worlds governed themselves under the protection of human fleets. General Min-ho Kim, now Supreme Commander of the Terran Federation, stood in his office looking out at the rebuilt capital world of New Geneva. The planet had once been the seat of the Galactic Council. Now it served as headquarters for something the galaxy had never seen before, a government based on the radical idea that all beings had rights. Sir, his aide reported, the weekly status reports are ready for your review. Min-ho accepted the data tablet and scrolled through the numbers. Of the 847 species that had voted to enslave humanity, only 193 still existed as organized civilizations. The rest had been eliminated, absorbed into the Free Worlds Alliance, or reduced to small, nomadic groups searching for new homes. What about the crystalline hegemony? He asked. Down to 12 ships, sir. They're currently requesting permission to establish a colony on an uninhabited world in the Outer Rim. Min-ho smiled coldly. Permission. Denied. They can keep running. In his laboratory, now expanded into a massive research facility, Dr. Jae-Sung Han worked on new projects. But these weren't weapons. His focus had shifted to something the galaxy needed desperately: reconstruction technology. Haiwan, he called. To his assistant, who was now his research partner and wife, how are the restoration protocols coming along? Haiwan Young looked up from her workstation. We've successfully restored 14 star systems that were erased during the war. The temporal mathematics are getting easier to handle. Good, Jae-Sung said. The galaxy needs to see that humans can create as well as destroy, though they should remember that we're much better at the destroying part. On the former homeworld of the Void Touched, now called Liberty Prime, So-Min Lee worked as Director of Interspecies Relations. Her job was helping former slave species learn how to govern themselves. It was harder than fighting the war had been. Director, her assistant reported, the Aquatic Confederacy is having problems with their new democratic system. They keep trying to vote on everything collectively instead of electing representatives. So-Min sighed. Set up another training session. They'll learn eventually. Democracy is harder than dictatorship, but it's worth it. The challenge wasn't the species that had fought against humanity. Most of them were extinct or scattered. The real problem was the species that had surrendered immediately. They didn't understand freedom because they had never experienced it. Captain Dong Hyun-yoon commanded the largest fleet in human history, patrolling the major trade routes and ensuring that no new empires tried to rise. His ships were crude, by beings from dozens of different species, all united by their experience of liberation. Captain, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Epsilon sector. A group of Silicon Collective survivors is trying to re-establish slave factories. Response time? Dong-hyun asked. 18 hours at maximum speed. Take us there and charge the quantum disruptors. Some species never learn. Admiral Ye-jin Choi had established the Human Technical Institute on the ruins of the old Galactic Council building. Her mission was teaching alien engineers how human technology actually worked. The results were often explosive. Admiral, reported her chief instructor, Ki-young Nam, we've had another accident. The plasma beings tried to build a quantum engine without understanding the safety protocols. Casualties. Just some singed tentacles and hurt pride. But they're learning that human engineering requires more than just following blueprints. The Institute had become famous across the galaxy. Species came from across the cosmos to learn human techniques, but more importantly, they learned human attitudes. The refusal to accept that something was impossible, the willingness to try stupid ideas until they worked, and the understanding that sometimes the best solution was also the most ridiculous one. In the depths of space, human research stations continued Dr. Jae Sung's work on an even grander scale. Dr. Na Young Park, his former student, led a team developing technologies that made their wartime weapons look like toys. Dr. Park, her assistant reported, the new project is ready for testing. Na Young studied the device before her. It looked like a simple metal sphere, but the mathematics behind it were beautiful in their impossibility. What does it do? According to the specifications, it creates pocket universes where different laws of physics apply. Essentially, we can build custom realities. Perfect, Na Young said. If any more alien empires try to rise, we can just put them in a universe where tyranny is physically impossible. The political situation was complex. The Free Worlds Alliance included over 3,000 inhabited planets, each with its own government and culture. The only thing they had in common was their agreement that slavery was evil and that humanity would protect their freedom. Ambassador Hyun-woo Park, now serving as Prime Minister of the Terran Federation, addressed the Galactic Assembly from the same chamber where he had once been sentenced to slavery. But now he spoke as the elected leader of the most powerful civilization in cosmic history. 3 years ago, you voted to enslave my species, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of known space. 847 species agreed that humanity was too dangerous to remain free. The assembly was much smaller now. Representatives from surviving alien civilizations sat alongside delegates from liberated worlds. All of them listened carefully to every word the human leader spoke. You were right to fear us, Hyun-woo continued. But you were wrong about why. You thought we were dangerous because we couldn't be controlled. The truth is we're dangerous because we refuse to let anyone else be controlled either. He gestured to the mixed assembly. Look around you. This chamber now contains representatives from species that were slaves for thousands of years. They govern themselves now. They make their own choices. They live free because humanity decided that freedom is not negotiable. In the back of the chamber, a small group of surviving alien leaders sat in a section marked for Observer Species. These were the remnants of the great empires that had once ruled the galaxy. They were allowed to attend meetings, but they had no vote and no voice. To those who still think humanity was wrong to respond as we did, Hyun-woo said, looking directly at the Observer section, I remind you that you had a choice. You could have treated us as equals. Instead, you chose to treat us as property. He paused, letting his words sink in. Every species in this chamber now lives under a simple principle that humans have always understood. Those who would enslave others deserve neither freedom nor mercy. We offered you friendship once. You chose slavery instead. Now you live with the consequences. The speech ended with a promise that echoed across the galaxy. As long as humans exist, no species will ever again vote to enslave another. We have the weapons to enforce this promise, and we have proven that we're willing to use them. After the assembly, Min-ho met with his senior staff to review the latest intelligence reports. The galaxy was finally stable, but vigilance was eternal. Sir, So-min reported, we've detected some concerning communications from the Far Rim territories. There are rumors of species trying to organize a new galactic government. What kind of government? Minho asked. Unknown, sir, but the intercepted messages mention restoring proper order and eliminating the human threat. Minho smiled. It was the same cold smile that had terrified the galaxy 3 years earlier. Send a message to Admiral Yejin. Tell her to start preparing the advanced research projects for field testing, sir. It seems some species need a reminder of why they lost the last war. Dr. Na Young's pocket universe generators should be quite educational. The meeting ended with orders that would have chilled the blood of any surviving alien leaders. Humanity was no longer building weapons to fight a war. They were building weapons to prevent wars from ever happening again. In the depths of space, human research stations worked on projects that would have been called impossible by the old galactic civilizations, technologies that could rewrite the laws of physics in entire star systems, weapons that could eliminate concepts themselves, defenses that could make humanity truly invincible. The galaxy had learned that humans were the most dangerous species in the universe when they were angry, but they had yet to discover what humans were capable of when they were prepared. 3 years after the vote that was supposed to enslave humanity, the cosmos operated under a new rule. Humans would never again allow another species to suffer in chains. They had the weapons to enforce this rule, the will to use them, and the absolute certainty that freedom was worth any price. The galaxy had voted for humanity's enslavement and received extinction-level fury in return. Now they would live under human protection, whether they wanted it or not. After all, humans had learned a valuable lesson from their victory. Sometimes the best way to preserve peace is to be so overwhelmingly powerful that no one dares disturb it.